afternoon. My name is Keith Davis and I'm pleased to present on interpersonal communication. First, I would like to provide an overview on this subject matter. Communication is the continuous, complex, collaborative process of verbal and nonverbal meaning making. Interpersonal communication, on the other hand, is a subset of communication. When people involve talk and listening in ways that maximize the presence of personal, this is interpersonal communication. Who am I? How did I become who I am today? How was I socialized? My personality? My behavioral blend? All these things come into play and made me uniquely who I am today. How does this impact how I respond to others? How do they respond to me? How well do I listen? Also, my identity. Is it what it was yesterday? Did it change today? Identity is the transformation of a human into their individual and unique self after being socialized within their environment, community, or culture. Understanding personality patterns. The four temperament model of human behavior, the DISC model, is composed of graphs 1 and 2. This is expected of me, and this is me. My personality and my behavioral blend, when it comes to graph 1 and 2, based on my evaluation of self, were the same. My behavioral blend, DSC, direct, submissive, and confident. The evaluation has helped me to understand my behavioral blend, my personality. What does this mean for me now? Well, now I know how I can better interact with others based on how I've been socialized and things that have occurred in my life to make me uniquely who I am today. Listening. Looking at Burley Allen. 40% of time spent in communication is listening, whereas 35% spent talking, 9% writing, and 16% reading. The most demanding of all of these is in the area of listening. It was interesting to find out, based on studies, that when we look at managers and bosses in their relationship with employees, these same managers and bosses are highly respected and well regarded by their employees when these bosses and managers listen. When it comes to the levels of listening, we can begin, and it's been discussed in text, in regard to level 1 listening, which is empathetic listening. It's the okay attitude. I'm okay, you okay. Level 2, and also level 3, which is probably the least preferred, and it's listening in spurts, tuning out, thinking about what you're going to do to respond, and so forth. Also in text, there were a number of styles of listening. The faker, the dependent listener, the interrupter as a listener, self-conscious listener, intellectual listener. I can inhale now in looking at communication, and that's perceiving and listening. It's taking in the other person and what they are about, and so that you can better communicate. But as I exhale, I'm expressing myself and disclosing who I am for the other person to listen. And also looking at self-disclosure as I share and trust the other person and share my thoughts, feelings, and being honest and direct. What about fierce conversation? Fierce conversation is again coming out from ourselves into the conversation and making it real, being honest, being direct, but also expecting the other person involved in the conversation to do the same. Dialogue and listen and response. Dialogue and better communication. Listen and response categories that we talked about in text. Being an empathetic listener and responding in such a way. Giving advice. Asking questions. And also being critical at times. But my most favorite response is being empathetic as I respond in a caring and loving manner. Attributes. Being non-judgmental when it comes to listening. Understanding and empathetic. Listening from the heart. Listening at level 1. Peterson's book, Why Don't We Listen Better? Good question. Peterson did a good job, and when it comes to coming up with a very simple, to some degree, it would appear to be simple, in looking at the talker-listener process. The listening techniques. Using the talker-listening card. When it's a couple or two people, each person have an opportunity to talk and each person have an opportunity to listen. But also in groups, especially when you're looking at family members, using the talker-listener card as a game during mealtime, each person rotating, talking, listening, each person while talking, not being interrupted. The concluding philosophy from Peterson's book, which I really like. And it points to being empathetic, using empathy, being genuine, and being warm. But also being non-judgmental. Treating others the way we would like to be treated. Guidelines for talkers. Looking at the message. The message, meaning of words and sentences spoken. The meta message, which is what is not said in words, the way something is said, and who is saying it. The antidote to the meta message is the meta communicate. That is to talk about the ways of talking. And in all of this, when it comes to the meta message, thinking about non-verbal communication, how we communicate when we're not using words. Finally, I want to say, in regard to this slide, the talker-listener card and interpersonal communication, how it improves the communication. Communication slides, or should I say communication walls. The Fireproof movie that we reviewed, which was an excellent movie, whereas a couple that were communicating, or should I say having trouble communicating, were experiencing a communication spiral. And these spirals can be negative or positive. But in this case, it was a negative spiral, where the communication breakdown occurred and there were walls. Looking at deception, betrayal, and aggression were demonstrated in this movie. Deception being lying, but also looking at how deception can turn into betrayal, and is somewhat similar, and it violates the betrayed person's expectations. Communication problems, interpersonal conflict, turning walls into bridges. So as we overcome breakdowns in communication, bridging occurs as we come up with solutions. And as I said earlier, a communication spiral, which could be positive or negative. But the communication spiral occurs when the actions of each person in a relationship magnify those of the other, in a negative fashion or in a positive fashion. In closing, conversation is the relationship. I will repeat it. The conversation is the relationship, according to Scott. And so, as we improve our conversation, so does the relationship improve. The quality of life is based on the conversation, as stated in text. Looking at a discussion versus dialogue. Dialogue, the quality must be there. It's connecting. It's empathetic listening. It's achieving something with dialogue. Our behavioral blend, once again. How we've been socialized. How did we become uniquely who we are? Based on background influences in childhood. And how we can better communicate when we know and understand the other person's behavioral blend. This is the end of my presentation, and I enjoyed presenting on this subject matter in a personal communication. Thank you.